Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Lucas and welcome back to the show. Today we are talking some more basketball because as you guys know, the trade deadline did just pass and I kind of wanted to go through the trades that went down, kind of talk about each team that did their own thing and kind of, I don't want to say give grades, but just talk about how I feel about the trade and how I think that that team did during the trade deadline. I just have a list set down, so they're not in any particular order. So first one is the J.J. Redick trade to Dallas. The Mavericks got J.J. Redick and Nico Melli for James Johnson, Wes Iwundu, and a second-round pick for this year or next year. I don't know. A 2021 second-round pick. I mean, for the Mavericks, obviously, you get another shooter, you get a veteran for hopefully a playoff run. You also get Nico Melli, who's a good floor spacer, or should be a good floor spacer for the Pelicans. I mean, I feel like Redick was the person that they were going to have to trade, so getting a potential future player in Wesley Iwundu and a second-round pick isn't the worst thing. Like I said, I think the Mavericks definitely did well to get a couple of good players there, but for the Pelicans, it's not the worst trade in the world, especially if you kind of had to move him. Next up, a big one here was Victor Oladipo to Miami. First off, to start with the Heat, solid deal. You know, you get I want to say a good defender and someone who can play very well in that system. I think when he's not the main guy, he's going to do very well. That being, like I said, I don't know how they're going to use him, but I think, you know, you take a flyer in this case and, you know, it's not the end of the world. For the Rockets, it's awful, right? I mean, if you want to give it a grade, it's an F. And it's not just because of what they got for who they traded. I think it's very impressive that they moved Victor Oladipo after what has been going on. It's not the fact about this trade, it's the fact that they could have had Caris LeVert instead of Victor Oladipo. They could have had 3 years of Caris LeVert, at least. They could have built around him. But they chose Victor Oladipo, which ended up turning into Avery Bradley, Kelly Olynyk, and a 2022 first-round pick. Swap rights. So, in essence, they're getting Avery Bradley and Kelly Olynyk, and probably their own pick. At the end of the day, awful trade for the Rockets. They could have had, like I said, Caris LeVert would have been so much better than Avery Bradley and Kelly Olynyk, who aren't even going to be on the team next year. I mean, it's that simple. Maybe Bradley comes back. I doubt it, though. At the end of the day, I like it. I like it for the Heat, and obviously hate it for the Rockets. The next one, a very interesting one, was Lou Williams to Atlanta. I mean, for the Hawks, obviously, you get another scorer. You know, you get another scorer, get another guard, and I like the move for the Hawks. And they also got a 2023 second-round pick and a 2027 second-round pick in cash. And the Clippers got Rondo. Just Rondo. Like, no offense. I think Rondo is a great veteran. He's a great player. But I just think Lou Will would have been better for that team in general. And not only that, they gave up a couple of second-round picks and cash. Now, I'm not, like I said, Rondo is a very good veteran, a good point guard who can get people open. And it's not the worst thing in the world. I just feel like Lou Will is a better fit. Now, I could be wrong. I don't know the ins and outs of the Clippers. I will say that. I just think that it wasn't a great move. Next one I'm going to lightly touch on. This is a 3-team trade between the Celtics, the Bulls, and the Wizards. The Celtics got Kornet and Mo Wagner. They ended up giving Daniel Theis up and probably some cash. I don't really understand it for them. I just don't get why they needed that. I feel like Theis worked better. I don't know. Maybe they wanted a floor spacer and Mo Wagner. I don't see the reason to have Kornet. I don't know. Next, the Bulls got Troy Brown and Theis and cash. And I think that's a solid move for them. I think Troy Brown is a good pickup. Someone that can definitely play for them and help. Theis, I mean, that's not a bad player either. But I think the Wizards really won this deal. I don't like to say who won the deal, but I think the Wizards, if there's a team that won this deal, it would be them. They got Gafford and Hutchinson, two very young players, two young prospects who could definitely help their team in the future because they obviously aren't in a win-now mode. And I like that pickup. Like I said, I think those two players could definitely be good. They may not turn into anything, but I think those two players could definitely be good in the future. So I kind of like the move from the Wizards. Next, we are talking about another Heat trade. Bjelica went to the Heat, and the Heat gave up Mo Harkless and Chris Silva. Again, for the Heat, it makes sense. You're giving up a couple of players that aren't really getting minutes, or aren't getting significant minutes at least, and you're getting a good floor spacer in Bjelica. It kind of opens it up to move Olynyk for that Oladipo trade. And overall for the Heat, and again, another solid trade, another trade to help that team out. For the Kings, I don't really know. I'm not sure how that's going to work. I guess Silva, if you had to move Bjelica, Silva's not the worst player to get. Because, like I said, he also is young, but it's just, I don't know. I feel like they could have probably done better for a floor spacer in Bjelica. But I mean, on this Bleacher Report, they say they gave it an A, so maybe I'm missing something. I don't know. Next up, the George Hill trade. He went to Philadelphia for the Sixers. They got George Hill and Ignas Brazdeikis. They ended up giving up Austin Rivers, Vincent Poirier, maybe? I don't know. They gave up some picks. I think they got 3 second-round picks and Austin Rivers for George Hill and Ignas Brazdeikis. I love it for the Sixers. It's not Kyle Lowry, obviously, but it was a pretty cheap pickup, and George Hill is a very good veteran, a very good defensive and shooter that can definitely help this team try to make this jump to the championship and over the Nets. Like I said, good deal for them. The Thunder got 2 second-round picks, Tony Bradley and Austin Rivers, and the Knicks gets Terrence Ferguson, Vincent Poirier, and a 2021 second-round pick. The Knicks, there's not really much to talk about. I mean, Terrence Ferguson, not the worst player, could definitely help them. But for the Thunder, this makes 34 draft picks over the next 7 drafts. 17 in the first and 17 in the second. I mean, that's video game numbers right there. That is video game numbers. I don't know. That is an insane amount of draft picks. Next up, we have the Norman Powell trade. He went to the Trailblazers for Rodney Hood and Gary Trent. At first, when I first saw this, I was like, okay, it's a good pickup. Norman Powell is a very good player. But Gary Trent, they ended up giving up Rodney Hood and Gary Trent. And Hood, it's not a bad give up. But Gary Trent kind of just seems like a similar player. He's not as good defensively. He's not as quick. He's not as long. But he's still very good and just seems like a lateral type of movement here. Right? It doesn't really make them that much better of a team. And I know Gary Trent has been struggling recently, but you expect that to change. I mean, Gary Trent's only 22. He's only 22. And Norman Powell is 28, and they're both going to be free agents this year, but Gary Trent is restricted. So for the Blazers, I'm not really sure about the move. Honestly, I think Norman Powell is better to help you win this year, but I think Trent is a better fit for the future. And looking for the Raptors, I do think it's actually a really good move. Like I said, originally I thought this was very lopsided in the Blazers' favor, but then I started thinking about it and realizing Gary Trent was only 22. I think it's a really good pickup for the Raptors. Maybe you give Rodney Hood a second life, depending if you play him or if they buy him out. I'm not really sure what their plan is there. Like I said, overall, I think it's a good trade for the Raptors. I like it. Next up, we're finally moving into some of the Magic deals. The first one, or not the first one, but the first one on here, the Aaron Gordon trade. He went to Denver. Him and Gary Clark went to Denver for Gary Harris, RJ Hampton, and a 2025 first-round pick. Top 5 protection through 2027. So, not that I don't think that'll be used, but you know, it's a while away. So I guess maybe I could be crazy. For the Nuggets, I mean, obviously, it's a good upgrade for a team that's trying to win a championship. There's not much else to say than it's a good pickup. I like Aaron Gordon. I think he's going to be a very big help to that team. But for the Magic, which is where it gets more interesting when you want to talk about it, I actually like the haul they got for Aaron Gordon, considering he was asking out. You look at someone like Vucevic's trade or Fournier's, neither of them were really asking out, but obviously Fournier was someone they were probably looking to move. But with Aaron Gordon, he had legitimately asked for a trade. So getting Gary Harris and RJ Hampton are two very good guards, and I actually, like I said, I like the move. I like the haul they got. And they also got a first-round pick out of him. Hampton is someone that, like I said, give him time to develop. I think he could be a very good scorer in this league. So, I mean, like I said, it's a solid pickup for someone like Aaron Gordon. So, you can't be too mad at that. The next Magic trade we're going to talk about is Evan Fournier's trade. And at first, obviously when you first heard it, it was 2 seconds for Evan Fournier. And at first it was like, what the? You give Evan Fournier for 2 seconds? They ended up getting Jeff Teague too. And for the Celtics, obviously it's a great pickup. A great player in Evan Fournier who's only 28, who can help that team in the vast, more than just the near future. Great pickup for the Celtics. Not much else to say. They didn't have to give up almost anything for him. For the Magic, though, it feels like you could have gotten more for Evan Fournier. And I know it was a great deal to clear up space for the eventual Aaron Gordon trade. I think this trade had already gone through, I believe. I think that one was the first one. But either way, you still feel like it could have gotten more. I feel like they could have gotten a first-round pick in the distant future. Maybe not even too distant, but, down the stretch. Feels like you could have gotten maybe a young prospect instead of someone like Jeff Teague. I mean, if you're going to blow it up for some young players. And they did a good job, in my opinion, on the Aaron Gordon trade. And eventually we'll talk about the Vucevic trade. I think they did a pretty good job there, too. But here, I just feel like they could have done better. And maybe they just weren't getting the offers they were hoping for. I don't know, but at the end of the day, I still don't like it for the Magic, even though I know it opened up some things. Now, next, the Vucevic trade. He went to Chicago, as well as Al-Farouq Aminu for Wendell Carter Jr., Otto Porter, a 2021 first-round pick that's a top 4 protection on it, and a 2023 first-round pick. For the Bulls, I'm not sure, right? I think they have pieces there to win, but not to win the East. I think they are a team that can make a push for the playoffs in the next 2-3 years. And I know you need to get help for Zach LaVine because he's not going to be there forever. I don't know. I don't know. It really comes down to how they end up competing the next 3-4 years. Because for the Magic, they get Wendell Carter, who's a great young center to pick up there, to hopefully end up replacing Vucevic. You got Otto Porter, who's a great scorer, and a 2021 first-round pick that probably won't be that insane, but a 2023 first-round pick that if this doesn't work out for the Bulls and they struggle, that first-round pick could be insanely good. So, again, it really comes down to how does that 2023 first-round pick end up. But I think for the Magic, it was a very good haul for Vucevic. And it could be an amazing haul depending on what happens down the stretch. But overall, like I said, it's definitely a good trade for the Magic, considering they were blowing everything else up. And it can be a good trade for the Bulls. I just feel like they need one more big piece. I feel like they need one more big piece to really make a push and be a top contender in the East. But it is definitely a step in the right direction. This next trade, I'm really not sure how to judge it. It's Terrence Davis to Sacramento. And you look strictly basketball, it's a great trade for Sacramento because he is a young player who is proven to be very good, and they only gave up a second-round pick for it. Obviously, there are extenuating circumstances. I know the charges have been dropped with the case that he was in, but still, I'm not really sure how it's going to work out. But it's not a bad flyer. When you look strictly basketball, I really like it for the Kings. For the Raptors, again, they weren't really playing him, so you have to take a look at the extenuating circumstances. But at the end of the day, when you look at basketball, I think the Kings won this trade full on and full through because I think he has a lot of talent. But it's like I said, it's a tough trade to grade because of the issues. So we'll move on to this one. I just want to touch on this one. It was the Brad Wanamaker. The Warriors traded him for cash. Solid deal. It opens up a spot for a buyout to pick up a buyout player. It opens up a spot for maybe Jordan Poole to play. It's not that big of a deal for the Hornets. I'm not, like I said, you're taking a flyer after LaMelo's injury, which pretty much for free. So it's not the end of the world for them. The Marquise Chris trade to San Antonio. It really comes down to, are the Spurs going to re-sign him in the offseason? I think if they do, it's a solid trade because they also did buy out LaMarcus Aldridge. But obviously he's not going to... Chris is injured for this year. So it's a tough one to grade right now. The Warriors opened up another spot, I think, for a buyout player. Not the craziest trade. It's a tough one to really talk about. The Matt Thomas to Utah trade was supposed to open up a roster spot for the Raptors, but the Kyle Lowry trade never ended up coming to fruition. But they ended up getting an extra player in Rodney Hood, so I think that's what took up the extra roster spot. I'm not sure. Either way, it's not that crazy. Utah get a shooter, and it definitely could help them for sure. And he's a good defense. He's a pretty solid 3-and-D guy, so it's not a bad pickup for the Jazz, and it's not awful for the Raptors. JaVale McGee going to Denver. I think it's a solid pickup. They gave up 2 second-round picks. The one in 2023 is protected from 31 to 46, and I'm not sure what kind of value Isaiah Hartenstein has. But at the end of the day, if the Cavs kind of had to move him, getting 2 second-round picks and a backup center is not the end of the world. Is not awful. And the Nuggets getting someone for the bench, another rim protector, also is not awful. So I want to talk about this one real quick. DeLon Wright went to Sacramento for 2 second-round picks and Corey Joseph. I like the move for the Kings here because they got DeLon Wright, who's a solid player, probably be a solid backup for them right there. It's definitely a good pickup. Was 2 second-round picks and Corey Joseph too much? Maybe. But at the end of the day, it's not a bad trade. I guess, depends on how long he's going to be there, I guess. But like I said, not a bad move for either team. Pistons also get a couple second-round picks for a player that they wasn't going to be a long-term answer for him. We can also talk about the PJ Tucker to Milwaukee trade. I think it's a great deal for the Bucks. The Rockets, not really that good. Maybe if the Bucks really fall off in 2023, they get a solid pick. But again, it's just setting them up to tank really hard for the next 3, 4, 5 years. So, but the Suns getting Torrey Craig for nothing, very good, very, very, very good. So I think a great trade for the Suns, good to great trade for the Bucks, and then the Rockets. Probably pretty bad. So that's really all the trades I was going to talk about. I want to talk about a couple of teams. Obviously, Kyle Lowry not doing anything at the deadline. I want to talk about with the Raptors. What are you doing? You should have moved him. I don't care if it wasn't enough. He's not. Maybe he comes back in the offseason. I don't know. I feel like you had to have moved him though. So I think the Raptors made a really big mistake there. And as did the Lakers and the Heat. Maybe not as much the Heat as the Lakers did. Because the Heat still got Vic for much cheaper than they would have gotten Lowry. And at the end of the day, it's not the end of the world. With the Lakers, I think the snag was on Taylor Horton Tucker, and I get like he has the potential to be very good in the future. But Lowry could have been a big piece to help you win now, and you didn't take it. So I'm not sure. Finally, the Pacers did not make any trades, and they made one move, was to cut Jalen LeCue for the buyout market. As I predicted, I told you, I said at least Miles Turner's not getting traded. And as every year, rumors of Sabonis and Brogdon getting traded, none of them were going to get traded. It's just crazy. Every year it's the same thing. People say, oh, these players are up for trade. People are listening to offers, and then nothing occurs because there never really was any moves there. But like I said, I kind of predicted that, and it's very good for a team like that. And one more thing on the Lowry to Heat trade. I think a big piece that they wanted was Tyler Herro. I kind of, especially after getting Vic, as I was saying, keeping Herro, who is still very young and has still quite a bit of potential. I know he has not played very well this year, but keeping Herro, along with getting Oladipo for very little, I think might have been the right move. You know, maybe not for this year, but the team hasn't been that great this year. But when you're looking ahead, it might have saved them a couple years of pain, especially if Lowry doesn't come back or if Lowry isn't as good as they wanted. So again, not awful for the Heat. If they had not gotten Vic, I feel like they would have had to maybe make a bigger push. I don't know. But at the end of the day, like I said, I'm not totally against them holding on unless they were going to get more than what I expected. But at the end of the day, like I said, not awful for the Heat, but when you look at the Lakers, I feel like they should have made that move. But that does wrap it up for the trade deadline talk. If you did enjoy, please leave a like, subscribe if you want to see more. If you want to explain your reasoning for your certain grades and how you feel about the trades, just leave them down in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.